Hey, thanks so much for watching. Pastor Ryan here. We are in week 2 of our In My Opinion series. And now if you watched last week, you realize that as we're going through this series, the big thing that we're going to be talking about is what we say and really in how we convey what we feel and how we do it in a way that's Christ honoring and Christ like. And so as we go through this series, I hope that you don't come out of it feeling like you're an awful person or that you've just messed up and there's no hope. What I want you to understand is that this is something that all of us have to work on and deal with really on a daily basis. And so I hope that you're encouraged through that. Now, have you ever spoken up into a situation, or maybe you've spoken up in class, or you've spoken up and after you've spoken up, you felt awkward, you felt like maybe you hurt somebody or you embarrassed somebody, or maybe you were embarrassed when you spoke up. I remember times when I was in school that I would speak up. A teacher may ask me a question and I would speak up and everyone would look at me like I was crazy, or I would say something and they were like, what in the world? I remember times when I would speak and give my opinion to my friends about something that they wanted to do, and they would be like, why would you not want to join us? It would make them embarrassed that they even came to me with it. And I think a lot of times as humans, as we navigate our relationships, we try to figure out what can we say and how can we say it in a way that makes me feel accepted and makes the other person feel validated as well. And I want to be honest, and I want to be frank with you that there are times that you need to speak up into somebody's life. Now, as we talk today, I want you to understand. I want to zone in on conversations that we're going to have with people around us. Specifically, let's think about this in the context of how we're going to speak to our friends when maybe they're making a poor decision, when they're making a decision that is probably not the best for them. How do you do it? How do you share with them? How do you tell them your opinion without coming across as judgy or better, them thinking that you're better than them? Or how do you do it where you can maintain and keep that friendship? It's a tough dynamic, but it's something I think a lot of us try and figure out as we're going through our life, is how can we communicate in the right way? I know that some of you that are watching, you will have the tough conversations with your friends if you have to, but really you want life to be all about the fun. I think about it this way. I've seen a lot of pictures popping up on my news feed and on Instagram of everyone's down at the beach now, and we want our lives to look like that Instagram photo on the beach. We're just having a good time. Sun's out. We're playing in the water. We're hanging out with our friends. We want life to feel like that, but it's not always like that. There are times where it's rainy, it's gloomy, and even in our relationships, there are times that we're going to have to navigate some really difficult things, and you're going to have to speak into someone's life. And some of you are okay with that. You'll do it if you have to. Some of you avoid any sort of confrontation at all costs. You will avoid speaking your mind or sharing your opinion because of whatever reason. And then there are some of you that you are looking, like you find your friends, you find out all the business because you're like, hey, they need to hear my opinion about it. And I think all of us have room to learn and room to grow. Not necessarily if we will speak into it or if we will not speak into it, but how we do it. How we do it matters. How you speak matters. The way that you use your words is important. Now, as I jump into this, I understand that many of the times that we're hesitant to speak into a situation, we've convinced ourselves of maybe one of these things, that we don't want to ruin the friendship and make them mad. We think it's just not any of my business. Or maybe they're getting ready to do something that you've done and you think, well, I would be a hypocrite if I told them not to do something that I've already done. Sometimes we just don't speak because we're like, well, they're not going to listen anyway, so why waste my breath? Sometimes you don't do it because you're like, well, is this gossip? Is this not something that I should talk about? Sometimes, let's be honest, you've already told them what you think, and they're still going to make the wrong choice. And all of these thoughts enter our mind, and I understand that makes it complicated. I think the social pressures, I think the peer pressures that we have of wanting to fit in, especially as a teenager, are so difficult to navigate when it comes to speaking into your friends and some of the decisions that they're making. And there are some times that you just don't need to say anything. It's not any of your business. But if you really care about somebody, if you really, really want the best for them, there are some really big situations that you do need to speak into. And I can't list them off here, but you'll know those situations as to when you should speak into it or not. And I'm not talking about things like, hey, should I wear this or that? I'm talking about some of those hard decisions, those decisions on a relationship, or on where they're going to go, if they're going to go to this party, or if they're going to be around this, or all those types of things. Well, as you probably can imagine, there is a passage in the Bible that I want to talk about just real quick today. Paul, a guy that we've talked about quite a bit, is writing to a church, and he writes it in the book of Galatians. He writes to him at the beginning of the last chapter in this book, and he gives him some really powerful words. I want you to hear what he says in Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. He says, brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. But watch yourself, or you also may be tempted. You see, when we care about somebody, we want what's best for them. And sometimes that means that we have to speak up when we see they're headed in a harmful direction. Now, I in high school, I was a pretty good kid. I wasn't perfect by any means. I had plenty of things that I was dealing with. But as far as some of those things that I think a lot of kids in high school and in middle school deal with an outward way, things like partying or drugs or drinking, or even the relationships that they were in, that maybe they're having sex or they're doing some things that they shouldn't be doing, and they're lying. I was a pretty good kid from what people would probably perceive. But I saw a lot of my friends that decided to go down a different path. And as they made those decisions, I didn't speak up. And a lot of it was, I didn't understand. I didn't understand why they were doing it, because I thought, well, this is obviously not going to end well. I understood the desire, because there was a lot of desire in me to fit in and to be a part of that crowd, because it felt good when you were popular, or when you had a group of friends that you could connect with. But I watched a lot of them go down a path that wasn't so good, and I didn't speak into it. And looking back, there are things that I wish I could have said. Not that it would have necessarily changed everything, but I think it could have helped some of them. It could have helped them if I would have said, "Hey, I don't think that's a good idea." And I want to focus on this point today again. Not necessarily that we should or shouldn't, but how we do it. There's a difference in going to somebody and saying, "Hey, you're an idiot. Why are you doing that?" There are some friends that you can have that conversation with. But there are a lot of friends, if you started that way, they probably would look at you and be like, "Well, I'm not going to hear anything you have to say now." But if you go and say, "Hey, I'm really concerned about you. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about how this could end?" And here's what I want to tell you. Every time you have that conversation, they're not going to listen. But sometimes they will. And sometimes they will say, you know what, you're right. Sometimes they'll say, you know what, I think I'm going to take my chances. But you've done what the Bible tells us we should do, that we should confront somebody that's in sin. We should have a conversation with them. And he says to do it gently. I think a lot of times we want to lash out and we want to tell them harshly, like, the louder I speak, or the more firm I am with the way I speak, the more people will listen. And in my experience, I find it almost the opposite. That people don't listen to me nearly as much when I yell and when I scream. But when I come at them in a calm and a gentle way, they're a lot more likely to hear what I have to say. If I come to them and they know deep down that I really care about them and I love them and I want what's best for them, they're more likely to hear what I have to say. See, we can speak up, and you can speak up into your friends' lives, not in a judgy way, not in a way that, hey, you're an awful person and I'm a better person than you are. No, in a way that, hey, I want what's best for you. I think you have so much potential. And I know your conversation may not look like that, guys. I know that as you're having conversations, and it may happen even over a text message, but there are things that you can say in those relationships. And here's what I want you to understand. I believe that God has put you in the life of some of your friends so that you can help them, so that you can point them and bring them closer to Christ as you follow Christ yourself. So don't be scared. Don't think that, well, I'll wait until I'm older. I'll let their parent, or I'll let a teacher or a different friend speak to them. No, maybe God wants you to speak into your friends' lives. When you need to speak up, you can ask yourself these questions. What does it look like to love your friend and show kindness in this situation? And you could ask yourself this: what would I want if I were in my friend's situation? See, I want to encourage you. Be gentle when you speak. Use kindness and love when you speak to your friends. Pray about it. Take some time and say, God, what would you have me say? Open the right door. Help me to say what you want me to say. Because God has called you to those friendships. And there are some friendships that need you to speak into them right now to help them to maybe make some wise decisions. I hope that over the next week you make some good decisions, that maybe you have some hard conversations. You begin to look for ways that you can speak into your friends' lives in a gentle, kind, and loving way. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff. We'll have a video up again next week. Check it out. We'll be finishing up with week 3 of our series, In My Opinion. See you soon.